sort of get caught up in our emotions because of the fact that we're stuck at home. And then we're also going to talk about specific vitamins nutrients to our body and also support our immune system to work the best way that it can. So those are vitamins A, vitamin C, vitamin E, and selenium. And the ACEs that I've put there is a really easy way to remember what to look up if after the fact you want to do a little bit more research on a specific vitamin or mineral. And then we're going to call ACEs is an easy way to remember that. And we're going to go over essential fatty acids, zinc, and a couple of other really supportive supplements and food sources as well. So this is where I wanted to start. What are free radicals? We hear a lot about toxins and free radicals, but when I talk to clients, oftentimes people don't necessarily understand what that means. So what an actual free radical is really just an unstable molecule that's floating around in our bloodstream, but it's missing an electron. Electrons are most stable in pairs. So what will actually happen with a free radical is that it will attach itself to a cell membrane to steal their electron, and that makes that more stable. The challenge with the free radical is when it's going through the body and it's trying to find that extra electron, it can actually do damage to other cells and other molecules as it travels around. So where do they come from? It's a misnomer that we just get free radicals from the outside world. In fact, they are produced from our own body's processes. And I know I'm talking to a group of active people here. A large piece of that can be metabolism. So just eating every day, the regular cycle of processing food, the cycles or mechanisms that our body uses to process and break down that food actually can result in free radicals. So that can be a metabolism. That's just one example. But they also come from external environment. That's pollution when you're walking down the street, or pesticides that are sprayed on our foods, and those are other ways, in addition to the virus and bacteria that's floating around. And know that they're everywhere. They're in the air, be it yeast that are floating or bacteria that's floating in the air. And so free radicals are not that unusual. We encounter them every day. It's just really about making sure that if our immune system is strong, it's equipped to deal with those free radicals. We do have a system to fight back, and this is what's really exciting. And this is what antioxidants are all about. So antioxidants are molecules that neutralize free radical molecules in our body. So what an antioxidant actually does is, I kind of think of them as a little army, because when they're fighting free radicals, they'll actually go in and they will do one of two things. They'll attack the free radical and they kind of break that cell open, and then being no longer a cell that actually functions normally, it's left for the body's sort of garbage collected system to come by and clean up what was a free radical, what was a molecule. The other way antioxidants are very supportive is that they'll actually give up an electron willingly. So they'll float around in the bloodstream just like a free radical will, and they'll identify, hey, there's a free radical, I need to do something about that. So they float over there and they actually give up an electron, and that doesn't necessarily get rid of the free radical, but it helps to stabilize it. So as that free radical is going through the body, it will end up in the normal elimination pathways of, say, our liver. And it takes time for the liver to actually process that. But in the meantime, because it's stable, as it's floating around, that free radical is not doing damage to the body. And that's the important factor. So where do we get them from? Our bodies are amazing. They're quite amazing and fascinating. I never cease to be amazed by what the body can do. So yes, our body processes create free radicals, but we're also equipped to create antioxidants. So your body's already has that built in as an innate feature in it. The benefit of of antioxidants is we can also get them from food. And that's what our focus is going to be around today. Well, how do I get them from food, and what foods should I be focusing on? Some foods have a very high antioxidant content. Other foods have a little bit of a lower antioxidant content. So I know it's a bit of a strange sentence, I'll call it, but this is something I say to clients all the time because it's very easy to identify when you're looking at your dinner plate, but also when you're at the grocery store. So eat a rainbow. And this is really indicates to you, but it's nature's way of indicating to us all the different nutrients that are available in all the different foods and produce that we eat. So when I say eat a rainbow, I'm talking about whole foods. Don't look for a box with a rainbow on it. That's not going to help you. In fact, what you're looking for is in the produce department at your grocery store, try and put produce in your cart that has a variety of different colors. Those different colors represent different nutrients that nature is offering for us, and that's why they're brightly colored. So if you fill your plate with whole foods of different colors and give your body and taste bud what it needs, eating a rainbow is actually quite easy to do. The only thing that I will say is this naturally introduces antioxidants into your diet, but you really want to primarily make sure that green is a big part of it. So yes, red peppers do offer, different nutrients for us, but some of the real powerhouses of antioxidants are green in color. So if you're ever not quite sure, it's a really good basis or a good color to, rely on and fall back on. So local antioxidant foods. Now, the reason that I say local is that there are things like goji berries out there and chia seeds out there that are fantastic. The difference really is goji berries aren't something that are grown in Canada. We actually can grow chia here, that it is a possibility, but often a lot of that type of thing comes from, outside of our borders. So I always want to provide clients with things that they can actually get a hold of on a regular basis throughout the year to include into their diet. So here are our top 5 local antioxidant foods. The first place goes to prunes, woohoo. And yes, they do come from plums. The upside of prunes, though, and this is an interesting fun fact, is that sometimes when food is dried, the nutrient density greatly increases. Now, that doesn't go for all foods, but plums and raisins are certainly on that list. So yeah, plums do have a lot of nutrients in them, but their nutrient content increases once they're dried. The same goes for grapes. They get place number 2 when showing up as raisins. So our number 1 and number 2 choices here are always best when they're dried. Everything else on the list is going to be better if you're eating it fresh. And so blueberries come in 3rd place. We're so lucky that our province has a plethora, an abundance of blueberries. Cranberries. If you didn't know this, I get a lot of surprise about cranberries because people tend to eat them at Thanksgiving and not throughout the rest of the year. I will say that cranberries are delicious. They don't have to come in a can with gel attached. In fact, if you can take them from a natural state and cook them, you're going to get many more nutrients from them. The upside too is, thank goodness we live in the age of the internet, because if you're not sure how to cook cranberries outside of a side dish recipe for Thanksgiving, there are many different options online that will actually get those yummy food into you in a different manner than maybe you were expecting. And our 5th place, a cutie, is blackberries. And again, an abundance in our province, and so they're available to us pretty much year round. One of the other questions that I get from clients sometimes is how best to preserve foods so that during the winter months when things aren't necessarily growing, that they can still have access to them. And so freezing is one of the best options that we have. The quicker we can get food into our freezer from when it is picked or when it's been slaughtered, the better. The more nutrients are going to be contained in it. And then, of course, the longer that food stays in the freezer, the more nutrients you're going to be losing. However, just logistically, we need a way to be able to get antioxidants in the wintertime. So some frozen blueberries in the freezer is a great option to be able to have them as part of your diet, even if they're not in season. All right. So the other ways that we can actually get healthy foods into our body is things that are fermented. So things like kefir, which is really just kind of like a very thin yogurt, if you guys haven't experienced that. Of course, yogurt. Miso is really good for us. And then, of course, sauerkraut is really fantastic as well. But all of those foods will actually create or contain probiotics. They're cultivated in a way that allows, really, again, nature to do its part. Those healthier, beneficial bacteria in the air actually get into those foods and create probiotics. Now, the only caveat to something fermented is, and I'll use sauerkraut as an example, but usually if sauerkraut is coming from a country outside of Canada, it will have been pasteurized. Pasteurization means heat, and heat kills probiotics. So if you're, barking up something new and you want to try some sauerkraut, look for some Canadian-made brands. They are out there. And they're going to actually offer those live cultures of probiotics as opposed to something that's jarred and then shipped in from a different country. And lastly, meats. So meats, there are options that are actually more healthy when it comes to buying meat and consuming meat. And grass-fed. I'll shout out the whys of grass-fed. Cows are supposed to be, grazing. They're grazing animals. It's what they do. Their whole digestive system is designed to break down grass and get as many nutrients as they can from that. And so when you're shopping in the grocery store, or you may have to look for a local butcher that offers something different, but grass-fed is really what you're looking for. Now, in wintertime, cows can't eat grass. Often where we actually farm, there's snow on the ground. So what may happen is that you could find or get to know a producer that has grass-fed, grain-finished beef. And all that means is that that cow is raised for the majority of their lifetime eating grass. But because the winter months did come, we still need to make sure that cow is eating properly. That farmer has decided to finish that animal before slaughter with grain. And the reason we really want to make sure that grass-fed is something that we seek when we're looking for meat is that it really comes down to inflammation. Because cows are supposed to eat grass, when we feed them corn, it causes systemic inflammation in their body, and that gets passed along to us. So, we think we're eating a good quality steak, it tastes delicious, but unfortunately, maybe some people have a reaction to that meat, and that could be why. Of course, hormone-free is always what we're looking to do. And I know even some fast food restaurants are now looking to advertise that what the beef or meat that they offer is hormone-free. In terms of fowl or chickens, you really want to choose organic and pasture-raised chickens. And the reason for that is just like beef, when they're out in a field and they're chomping down on that grass, they're also eating other weeds and they're getting access to insects and just different nutrients that are available in that pasture. If a cow is in a barn and they're only getting fed hay or the same, grain day in, day out, they don't have access to that variety of nutrients that a cow in a pasture would. And the same goes for chickens. Chickens will walk through and they'll peck worms out of the ground, and they're getting different nutrients from that, which gets passed along to us. So if you're looking for somewhere to start or to research, there is Pasture to Plate. There's one on Commercial Drive, and there's one on Main Street. What you'll find, and I like to shout this out as well, is that it is more expensive. In an ideal world, I would love to see clients really increase their plant-based proteins, and then have meat, but a better quality of meat, and maybe less or fewer days throughout the week. Local butchers sometimes will know where their animals come from, and you just need to start a conversation with them. Farmers markets are a great place to, sort of start a conversation with a butcher and find out about their crop. Now, pasture to plate, the upside about them is they actually raise their own cattle, all of their own meat to slaughter, so they know exactly what's going on in that animal's lifetime. My last tip for meat is if you're at a restaurant, you go to the keg and you want to know, okay, where is this beef from? Your server will know limited information. So one of the very first questions that I always encourage clients to ask is this beef from Canada? And the reason being is we just do a much better job in Canada of protecting our livestock. And so if it's Angus beef from Alberta, feel free and go ahead. But if it's something that's come across the border from the US, I would skip it and have the chicken. Okay, so stress management, always easier said than done, right? And this looks different for everybody. How stress manifests for me can be completely different from the next person. And so essentially take or leave whatever makes sense to you and what resonates with you. First and foremost, I like to talk about nutrient density, because this is something we miss on a regular basis. High stress lifestyles actually burn more nutrients, and those that are physically active fall into that same sort of category. So if you're regularly active, you're going to be burning through more nutrients than your average person, so you need to make sure your nutrient density is higher. The 80-20 rule. This is a great way to live. Sometimes I work with clients that will work and really want to eat really cleanly for 30 days. And they work and they get there and they're almost there. And because they've taken out all of sort of the fun or joyful foods that is part of their regular diet, and albeit those are probably not the best quality foods, but we're only human. And so what tends to happen is they get near their goal and then they crash and they eat a whole bag of potato chips or a whole package of cookies. The 80-20 rule completely avoids this. 80% of the time you're eating well, so 20% of the time you get to make whatever food choices you want. Now this looks different for everybody. Some people need to do like 6 days of really good clean eating and then they get one cheat day. Other people will eat really well throughout most of the day, but then they want that one small treat or snack that fills that 20%. Whatever works for you, go for it. In general, though, for that 80%, we want to avoid boxed or processed foods. The easiest way to do this in the grocery store is to actually shop like the exterior aisles of the store. All the stuff that's processed lies or lives in the middle of that grocery store. But if you're on the outside perimeter, you're going to get freshly baked breads and lots of produce, as well as meat that is just meat. And so that's an easy tip. You want to avoid temptation when you're at the grocery store. Leave your cart at the end of the middle aisles and duck in and get the one thing you need and then back to the outside. Another factor, and this goes for now, but it also goes when we get back to our regular routines of working, and sleep hygiene is a big piece of that. So sleep hygiene is really letting the body, have what it needs. Yeah, so Lois says to avoid frozen boxed meals as well. And absolutely, frozen, if it's processed, as soon as it's in a box, we're gonna have a really hard time understanding what exactly went into that. Another tip can be, and I will get back to sleep hygiene, I promise, but another tip can be if you're reading an ingredients list on a box and there are words on that list that you just can't understand, or it's a laundry list, put it back on the shelf. I use salsa as a really good example. You can go to the grocery store, pick up 2 different brands of salsa. One will have 5 ingredients on it. The other will have 15 ingredients on it. If you can't pronounce it, don't bother putting it in your body. And if it has 15 ingredients, well, why? If salsa can be made with 5 and it tastes good or probably better, then that's the choice to make. Okay, so back onto sleep hygiene. Consistency is what the body really needs and loves. When it comes to meal times for diabetics, those types of things are really, consistency is what the body is looking for. So with sleep hygiene, it's much the same. Getting to bed at the same time at night, planning for 7 to 8 hours once you're in bed or before you're in bed, and then rising at the same time every morning. Now, that's not to say that you've had a rough go the day before and your body just needs an extra hour. Go for it. But do try to get to bed at that same time that night. The other piece is limiting screen time. So the blue light from all of our screens, from our phones, from our laptops, even TV screens, actually impedes our ability to create melatonin. So for people who have difficulty with sleeping patterns, or you just want to make sure that when you put your head on the pillow, sleep is going to come, try and avoid screens at least 1 hour before bedtime. This is often when I encourage clients to, say, read a book or try a meditation video. Some deep breathing that lowers your heart rate is only going to help you achieve the sleep that you're looking for. And there are natural remedies out there. So I'll say generally when I work with clients, oftentimes if people are having difficulty sleeping, it's because they're not eating it properly. Once we get some nutrient density into their diet, they have a much easier time falling asleep, but that doesn't go for everybody. Sleep is one of those things that can be passed down from generation to generation. So if you had a father who was a poor sleeper, unfortunately, that just may be the genetic dice that you get to roll. I do encourage people to try natural remedies before seeking a prescription. There are some people who need prescription medications on occasion to get to sleep on a regular basis. And of course, I'm not telling those people not to use those, but just see if a valerian root would work for you first. So I mentioned meditation, and this is really quite helpful for highly successful people. So I know we're in our society, we've talked about meditation and deep breathing way more than we used to, and that's because it's been proven to work. So practicing mini meditations can actually offer the same benefit after you're versed in meditation than a session that lasts even 30 minutes can offer those benefits. You can get the same benefits in 5 minutes. Just comes with a little bit of practice first. And then deep breathing. The reason that I really like deep breathing is because it's fantastic. You're in a meeting and you're having a high stress moment, or your boss is standing at your desk, or your coworker is driving you nuts again, but you have to work with them. You can deep breathe and they don't even know you're doing it. And that can be really beneficial to make sure that you're allowing calm and peace to return to your world, and you don't say something that maybe you wished you hadn't a few minutes later. Deep breathing and meditation are sort of the same in terms of anytime you're meditating, that person is going to be encouraging you to breathe deeply, kind of important. The upside about meditation is there are many, many YouTube videos out there for guided meditation if you're new to this process. Okay. So next is choosing your reaction. And this can be a difficult one for people, but if you step back in the moment of conflict and you really think about, okay, what is my next move going to be? You're taking that step already. I mean, you have a choice to make. You have to go left or right or whatever is on the horizon for you. But you can't necessarily choose a circumstance. We're all in lockdown right now. This is not a personal choice. What we do have control over is what is our reaction to a specific, stimulus or an environment. And so you can always control your reaction. And that's where you should step back and really take a deep breath and think, okay, so I can get frustrated at this coworker and say something, even mildly unpleasant that I'm going to have to fix later on. Or I can step back and take a deep breath and sing a song that I like in my head while this person's doing what they need to do. Or just find any sort of a stress reduction technique that works for you specifically. A positive outlook is also important. So if we believe we can handle stress, it's actually less impactful. And this was a study that was done taking 2 groups of people that had the same level of stress in their lives. So the base of the actual study was exactly the same type of people, but the mindset in some people was different from, group A was different from group B. The people who actually believed that stress was good for them, in terms of delivering answers or coming up with working under pressure and coming up with what they need to get done for a particular deadline. If people believed that the stress actually helped their performance or helped them in some way, it was actually less physically and emotionally impactful for those people. So positive mindset, and it's not to necessarily gloss over the reality of our lives, but just to see, you know, or take the mindset that I can handle this. It can make all the difference. And then practicing life balance. It's very easy for us to lose track of this, and we will certainly get caught up in that as soon as everybody gets back to work. But trying to practice life balance on a regular basis. So figuring out what brings you joy, and I'm not talking about cleaning out your closets. I'm sure everybody has done that at this point. But what do you enjoy? Do you like walking in nature? I recommend to some people singing or dancing around their living room to their favorite song. It can be anything that brings you joy. You know, buying an adult coloring book and sort of regenerating the things that we loved in terms of creativity when we were a child can be really beneficial as an adult. So now is a great time to understand what brings you joy, and then make sure that when things do get manic again and our lives do go back to the craziness as before, schedule that time in for yourself. You know, you schedule in everything else that goes on with your life. Make sure you schedule in some you time as well. All right. So tips for overall health. This is just in general. What can we do to keep ourselves happy and healthy? So in terms of a healthy body composition, I know many of us are kind of obsessed with the kitchen right now. It's a bit of a joke online about everybody, you know, being in the kitchen every 2 hours. A way to get around this is to really assess your full intake for a day. So you knowing, okay, I just had breakfast an hour and a half ago. I have a feeling of being hungry, but that's not really realistic. So then you should do a body check. You know, do I have hunger pangs? Is that something I'm actually experiencing right now? So ask yourself, am I actually hungry, or is this mood-based? Is it because I'm bored or I'm frustrated with being stuck at home? If that's the case, distract yourself. You know, pick up a book, start playing a video game, go for a walk, do something else. Get moving. And I loved being able to write this. Congrats, guys. You can check that off your list. I work with people all the time that don't necessarily understand the importance of moving. So yeah, congrats. High five to you all. Now practice self-love for taking such good care of yourself. Putting yourself first can be a difficult priority to meet, and so do pat yourself on the back for that. And then the last really is something I'm sure you've all heard, but limiting alcohol, caffeine intake, and sugar intake really are going to overall help your body. These things are the things that will push your nervous system into, you know, that frazzled state. They can actually create inflammation in the body, which doesn't do anything good for any of your body systems. But none of these things are immune supportive. So not only are they negatively impacting your immune system, but they can also leave you feeling unfocused and frazzled. Nobody wants that feeling when you're stuck at home. Okay, guys. So food lists and supplements. Everything I'm offering today is Genestra brand. So if you're going into like a Pure Pharmacy downtown, you'll see the same manufacturer. And so the quality is certainly not an issue. I've been using Genestra brand for a few years now, and I have a lot of success with clients. I wanted to start out and just shout out for those of you that aren't sure about making sure that you're getting all the nutrients. You can go with a multivitamin. I do have one 3-month supply. It's $29.25. Sales tax is extra, but the upside of a multi, and this multi in particular, is that it's a lot of the recommended daily allowances, where you're almost at your recommended daily allowance for all the vitamins and minerals that it contains. So you're kind of covering all your bases that way. But if you want to do it through food, and that's my approach, vitamin A rich foods are really your organ meats, but you don't have to necessarily eat meat. Put some sweet potato or winter squash on your plate. And then kale and collards, also very rich in vitamin A. You could try and supplement as well if you're not sure you're getting enough, and that's a 2-month supply for $11.85. So your vitamin C rich foods, we always hear about citrus, and that's absolutely true. but there are foods that actually contain more vitamin C, and those are kiwis, bell peppers, strawberries. If you're gonna buy strawberries, I always recommend, biting the bullet and actually buying them organic. It's one of those things that I talk about because it's a crop that's heavily sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. Oranges are next, and then papaya and broccoli is on that list as well. If you wanted to supplement, you can supplement. 3-month supply would be $23. Okay, so vitamin E rich foods, these are your sunflower seeds. So if you're making yourself a coleslaw at home, just toss some in at the end for some crunch, mix that in and go for it. Almonds are also a good option. Peanuts are up there when it comes to vitamin E. And then you've got avocado, spinach, and Swiss chard. The only thing that I'll say about nuts and seeds is that you really want to aim for raw. As soon as a nut or seed is roasted, you're losing all of the nutrients. You're still getting protein from it, but the nutrient spectrum is no longer there. So selenium-rich foods. So these are the last of the ACEs. Brazil nuts have a large amount, as well as oysters, halibut, sardines, ham, turkey, and brown rice. So you can definitely, by keeping things interesting and rotating foods, you can always make sure to get enough selenium. So zinc-rich foods are next. This is very immune supportive as well. Oysters have a ton of zinc, so if you love oysters, go for it. And then beef, chicken legs, tofu, pork chops, and hemp seeds also have quite a bit of zinc. And hemp seeds are different from any sort of a cannabis plant. There's no THC in them. They're actually grown in Alberta, and they have a great nutty flavor. You can add them to salads. Sometimes I actually put like almond butter and then hemp seeds on toast and eat that. And then you can get zinc for a 2-month supply. It's only $15.18. Okay, so sulfur-containing foods. No strange kind of terminology, but in fact, when we get sulfur in foods, it becomes very immune supportive for us. So adding a lot of garlic, roasted or raw. Most people choose roasted, but onions are also a really good source. And your cruciferous vegetables, so like your cabbage, your kale, your cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, that type of thing. Seafood offers a lot of sulfur, as well as your organ meats. There is no supplementation for sulfur-containing foods. Most manufacturers of supplements don't actually have a formula for sulfur because we can get enough of it from our food. Coenzyme Q10, I know that this is sort of shouted out in the news every once in a while. It does come from animal sources and olive oil, but getting enough is usually the challenge. So, that's, generally online, if you're looking it up, that's the challenge, is getting enough in your diet on a regular basis. And they certainly don't encourage clients to just eat a whole bunch of animal foods on a regular basis. There are other, factors like saturated fat that aren't necessarily suggested for that reason. You can, if you're worried about your immunity, you can supplement. It's $35.10 for a 2-month supply. The reason that one's a little bit more is simply the density to get that amount of CoQ10 in a supplement. It needs to become pulled from a lot of different foods. And then last but least, no, certainly not least, are our essential fatty acids. So fatty fish like salmon, oysters again, flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, and tofu have options. And there is an option for a 40-day supply. The upside of essential fatty acids, they do come from fish. It is a fish oil that you would be taking as a supplement, but you can get things like vitamin D added in there, or CoQ10 added in there as well. All right, so that is all I have in terms of me talking to you guys. That is my email address. And like I said, you can reach out anytime. I am on Facebook, I'm on Instagram as well as Twitter. But at this point, I'm actually gonna stop sharing this slide so we can have more of a discussion, and know if there's a particular slide you would like to see, just shout it out and I'll pull that up again.
Wow, awesome. I do want to say thank you so much, Connie. What a great presentation before we go to questions. And thank you all for joining us. Yeah, we had a number of long-term clients. think everyone here is a client. Terry, if it's a Terry I'm thinking of, founder of Symmetrix. So yeah, really, really cool to have you here, Connie. And yeah, let's go to questions.
Great.
Hi, it's Roseanne, and I have a question. We don't particularly love vegetables, so I do a lot of them in a salad, and I put in as many as I can, but they're always raw. Is that still okay?
Yeah, actually, raw is a great way to eat vegetables. As soon as you start heating a vegetable or really anything, your nutrient density does go down. Heat is one of the elements or factors that can change the nutrient profile in something. So raw is actually a great way. You're getting enzymes in there that you wouldn't be getting if you don't eat, if you only eat cooked. Now, the only caveat to that, and I don't know if some of you have heard about anti-nutrients or nutrients that are on the outside of foods. That is a thing. So if you're concerned about it, things like spinach and kale can actually have a protective layer on the outside that can make it difficult to digest. So if you ever notice that digestion when it comes to vegetables is a challenge, look for baby kale and baby spinach, because those crops haven't had a chance to actually create that protective layer yet. Not as much.
Understood. And I have one more question. For the flaxseed, does it have to be ground? Or
So flax is really quite interesting. It does. If you just eat flax, it does a really good job of like cleaning out your intestinal system, but you're not able to break that down. So yes, you want ground, but I only ever do freshly ground. So I've got, you can use a coffee grinder or a magic bullet, but yeah, grind it right before. I know Costco sells a huge bag of flax that's already ground. Don't bother. As you open and close that bag, as soon as it's exposed to oxygen, it actually has a potential to go rancid. So then you're actually introducing free radicals into your body.
Okay, thank you.
For sure. Anybody else?
I have been told that roasted flax, you can have it whole rather than grinding it by another nutritionist. There's some products available. Is that true or not?
Yes. Yeah, you're going to have more. It's just as it's original in its seed form. If you were just to eat them raw, then you're going to have more of a time. You wouldn't actually break it down. But if it's roasted, that roasting process breaks through that protective seal.
So you roast them and then crush them down?
You can, absolutely.
And there are also some available roasted already in the market, local ones.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be no problem.
Yeah. Our big problem at home is sugar intake because we're sugar bugs.
Okay. So my best suggestion for that is actually, and I know it sounds like old lady, I get old lady comments about it, but is dried dates. So if you've never bought a bag of dried dates, give it a go. It is high on the glycemic index. I'm not going to pretend that they aren't high in sugar. They definitely are. The difference being, though, that it's not white sugar. Like you go and buy a chocolate bar and you're like, this is delicious and wonderful. The sugar that's actually gone into that chocolate bar has probably been bleached. There's of course no nutritional value in it whatsoever. And so it really is going to store as fat very quickly. So a dried date has natural sugars. You're going to get other nutrients in that as well. But so it's going to be satisfying on the tongue for the sugar fix, but it's certainly more beneficial. And there are many, many recipes and desserts that you can make with using dried dates.
Okay.
Aside from that, I usually try to recommend to clients, try using molasses instead. If they're iron, molasses are iron rich, they're inexpensive. Maple syrup, the same thing. So though they're still high in sugar, you're actually getting some nutrients along with them. And then a slow reduction is the other piece. So for my clients that are sugar addicted, when I start with them, instead of saying, oh, no sugar, I start with 1 day. Give me 1 day a week where there's no sugar in your diet. And then the next week, try making it 2 days. And it's not really to completely get rid of sugar in our diets. It's transition to something healthier and just reduce the amount. What I often do with, for a treat is actually just push a full walnut into a dried date and eat that
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
like that.
delicious, right?
Yeah.
But it's also helping because you're adding protein, you're actually slowing your digestive process, and you're making yourself feel fuller with the protein and the fat that comes with those nuts. So sometimes,
There's also that, I've heard like sugar. Like, doesn't matter if it's white, doesn't matter if it's, golden brown or
yeah,
the
that's true.
Dimitri or whatever we call that one or whatever, right? I mean, it's all kind of the same.
It is.
So like I've taken, and then I know for the fats, so I keep looking for recipes. And so I know applesauce is a good alternative to fat, but then it also says it's all good alternative to sugar.
It is.
But I mean, you can't replace your sugar and your fat, otherwise you're not going to have a batter that sticks together.
It's true. Now, I will say the other piece of this is if you're feeling that way, and this is a bit of a precipice to walk on, there are sugar alcohols that are available out there. And so what I mean to say, there's one called erythritol. And so the reason that I know about it is that I work with diabetics sometimes. And so I will help them look for, recipes that will take something else. So erythritol is actually a sugar alcohol, so it still tastes sweet, but it doesn't have the same impact on our bodies. It doesn't spike blood sugar as much. It will for a little bit, but not nearly as high as our blood sugar would spike. And so it's not as detrimental. It doesn't take as much insulin from the body to break down and things like that. The challenge that I have if you're trying to reduce sugar from your life is that because the erythritol is as sweet as sugar, you're not training your brain and your body to want less sugar. And that's why, like, slowly limiting or lowering the amount. Because the thing about sugar is it's highly addictive. It lights up the same brain centers as cocaine does in our brains. And so you're dealing not just with what your tongue likes, you're dealing with what your brain is telling you to eat.
Yeah.
So fooling your brain into still meeting the sweetness requirement, even though you're not necessarily going to put on more fat, isn't retraining your brain in the right way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my best recommendation, is really just try and get that one day under your belt, or start to reduce the portion that you would allocate to yourself.
Right. I'll email you a little bit more details, so just so I'm not taking up so much time.
Sounds great. Yeah, and there's lots I have to share there.
Okay. Thanks, Connie.
Yeah, on that note, I do have to wrap up the presentation, not right away, but in the near future. I know there's a few questions in the chat for Connie, and what I would say is feel free to reach out to her directly. Connie, do you mind putting back up your contact information? There's also, we're going to follow up with an email from Connie, so look for that in your inboxes, and there's actually an offer there for people who participated. So yeah, really excited to kick off this weekly presentation with Connie's presentation, and I'm still so impressed that the content and your delivery was top notch. And thanks everyone for joining us. We've got a few minutes before 3, which is when I have to go. Is there, Connie, something else you want to add, or maybe we could do another question? I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, I will say that we can do a question if you want. I know I read something very briefly there asking about concussions. And so, yeah, with concussions, really and truly, you want healthy fats. The brain is comprised of a lot of fat. And so healthy fats are the way back from a brain injury. The keto diet was actually designed for people who had brain injuries or brain surgery. And that's why it's so difficult to maintain. And that's actually why doctors don't use it for a very long time. If you're doing the keto diet properly, you're actually getting the best that you can for healthy fats. But yes, we can certainly talk about that. I know connective tissue was the other, so I'll finish after this, Kent. Connective tissue is really about, collagen. It's about, you can supplement with collagen, you can get it from foods as well. And yeah, so I'm not sure because I can't get the chat box to come up again. Let me try it again. See if I can see it. But
The chat box.
yeah, I don't know what the question is.
Oh, it was,
Oh,
you're
there
right,
it is.
concussions, and then the next one was about cartilage and joints. And
Yes. And so there is supplementation that you can take for cartilage and that type of thing, but really collagen is your number one. So if you want something quick and easy, that is your best. So that's my best suggestion. Just make sure you're buying something good quality because oftentimes it's either coming from a cow, and we want to make sure that it's grass-fed beef that we're used. And the same goes for any sort of fish product. If it's coming from a fish product, we want to make sure it's been purified.
great. Yeah, I'll say it again. Thank you so much, Connie. Thanks for this amazing presentation, all this great information. Thanks everyone for joining today. Lois, Roseanne, Chris, great to see you here. Helen, Lynn, all the rest. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing you all throughout the week. And I'll make this presentation available to you because we did end up recording it if you missed anything. And again, watch out for that email from Connie in your inboxes. So thanks everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.